Deep breath out, Mokuo. Just let it all out. It's going to flow through you perfectly. The Dharma flow.
The Dharma flow. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, just let go. That's all you can do. All right. Again, hello and welcome, Sangha. Welcome back from our break. Just get yourself settled in. Settle into your seats. Again, we are in our retreat mode, and we are getting ready to hear another fabulous presenter throughout this week of presenters. So bear with me here, and let's get it going. Again, Sangha, help me welcome Mokuo Nancy, and she is going to be talking about her journey in becoming a disciple. She is also a member of the Foulmouth Soda Zen Sangha, working with Sensei Sengaku. So please welcome her with the gracious gashos as we transition the talk over to her as she talks about her journey as a disciple. So welcome, Nancy Sherwood. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. Know you're supported and loved through your discussion.
Thank you so much, Asatsu. Well, I'd like to start, I'd like to start by thanking Hojo for his leadership, of course. Sensei Zenku and Kuo-san, who are my mentors. Karen Wicken, who is my sewing teacher. And Sensei Sankak for his continued guidance. And the Sangha. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, thank you. So after I asked to be a disciple, excuse me, Sensei and I met in a coffee shop, and he gave me two full back and front sheets of what I needed to do and what I was going to do after. And my heart sort of sank. So I was, I was asked to study, learn about our Buddhist teachers, two Japanese, two Chinese, two American. I was asked, I was told to contact two mentors, Zenku and Kuo-san. I was told that I was going to sew a rakusu and to keep a journal. So I want to start, I want to do this in about 3 parts. I want to start with the mentorship. So the mentorship really got me to introduce me to the larger Sangha. And I called Sensei Zenku and introduced myself. And both mentors were just so kind and generous because I was so nervous. And we went through Living by Vow by Okamura together. And, I would ask questions and he would talk to me. And he always talks about self-centeredness. And I've been studying self-centeredness for many years now. So whenever he talked about self-centered, being self-centered, I knew exactly what he was talking about. He also recommended chanting, and I did chant a little bit for understanding, but I had not been disciplined in it. So after Mayosho's talk, I'm going to add that to my agenda. So thank you both. Kuo-san. So it was really important for me to be able to talk to another woman who had gone before me. And I asked her a lot of questions. I asked her personal questions. I asked her about her family. I asked her about her practice. We're both grandmothers. We talked about our grandchildren. I learned about Montana. She recommended Subtle Sound, the book Subtle Sound by Maureen Stewart. So we discussed that. We've been discussing the Susan Murcott's book, The First Buddhist Women. You got poems and stories of awakening. And those discussions have been really important to me. As a woman, I just, I had a lot of questions about things that I was comfortable talking with her about. So thank you, Kuo-san, for your guidance and your support. So the Rakusu, that's my second, the Rakusu. So when we met in that coffee shop, Sensei said, you're going to be sewing a Rakusu and we're going to do it on Zoom. And I very politely said, okay. And in my mind, I was like, no way. I am going to get in the car, drive to Wisconsin, and stay there until it's done. And I didn't tell him this. And the pandemic hit. So I wasn't going to go anywhere. Before the pandemic, I really didn't do Zoom very much. I'm not very technologically versed. So I got my instructions. I was supposed to read, I don't know the name of the book that Karen helped write. She gave me pages to read. So I read those, all about the, how the Rakusu, the beginnings of the Rakusu, why we wear the Rakusu, how the form came about. And the material was, dirty rags that people didn't care about and washed and sewed together. And, it was a very moving story. So I get my package and the material was black. And I thought it was going to be brown. And it was synthetic. And I'm a natural fibers girl. So right from the very beginning, the teaching started, I was supposed to choose, she sent me brown thread and green thread. And I was supposed to choose not the one that I liked, but the one that I could see better. So I could see the green better, I liked the brown better. So the material frays, it doesn't crease. So I had this thing about the material for quite a while. But by the end, I got to see, I was so grateful for this material because it didn't show all the times I took my stitches out and put them back in. If this material had shown that, my Rakusu would never have passed. So it really was it's one of my favorite experiences because I learned so much. It was like a mirror to me. And it wasn't that I discovered anything new about myself. I knew these things about myself. I knew that when I have new situations and difficult situations, certain characteristics come up. One of them is I'm not very smart. Another one is I have to be perfect. Another one is, the most important thing is what other people think of me. All that came up with doing the Rakusu. I would look at the diagrams and read the instructions, and I wouldn't be able to understand them. It was just like going around in my head. And so I told Karen right up front, I said, we're going to have to Zoom a lot. You're going to have to walk me through this step by step, because I'm not understanding what I'm supposed to do. I'm not a sewer. I'm not a crafts person. This is totally out of my comfort zone. So she was very, she said, that's okay. She said, but we just have to we'll pick a day, and then we'll have to be flexible on time. So sometimes, I would wait till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, waiting for her to Zoom with me. And sometimes she would have to go over the instructions over and over and over again until finally I understood them. The other part of the sewing, it was very meditative. I lit a candle each time before I sewed. I bowed to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and to all the sewers. I chanted when I sewed. And that, it connected me to the ancestors, the people who years and years and years ago did this. And I formed a really wonderful relationship with Karen. She was just amazing. I think it was difficult for her to do it on Zoom also. This was new for her also, and she was like a rock. And when you present all your frailties to someone, there's just becomes a bond, and we're the same age. So, and she has a wonderful sense of humor. So she was just, it was really bittersweet at the end. I didn't want to, I thought I'd be so happy, but I value that relationship so much. And I actually valued the whole exercise, even though I didn't always value it. So, one time I had sent it to her. I'd made a mistake and I had taken it all apart. She helped me, she pinned it back together, and she sent it to me, and she gave me pages to learn, to read for the next step. And I read them, and I just couldn't understand it. And so about 4 days went by, and she emailed me. She never did this. She said, "Where are you?" Like, I was never going to go back in that sewing room again. She says, "Where are you?" So I went back in, and I read and read, and I realized that she had the wrong pages, because her book's pages were different from my book pages. And that was really a breakthrough for me, because it was like, you know what? So you don't understand. So you have to ask for help again. What does it matter? What does it matter? The other thing about the Rakusu that, in the end, I just want to check the time. In the end, I knew that I had perseverance, because it wasn't easy at all. And I was grateful for all the hard things that I've gone through in life. I'm not going to list them, but I saw how I had developed perseverance through those hard times. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, is it because I don't want to let other people down? But I'm sort of beginning to think it's because I don't want to let myself down. So that's my Rakusu. The other part 3 that I want to talk about is the study part. I sort of got off on a tangent with the study part. I'm not an intellectual. I'm a slow reader. I have a short-term memory. My short-term memory is not so good. So I was really afraid of it. And one day I took all the books, Buddha books that I had, put them all out, and I called Sensei and I said, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. And he sort of talked me off the ledge. But as you know, when you make a commitment to do something, the universe falls in place. And my husband and I went out to Santa Fe in January for vacation. And I went to Upaya Zen Center 3 times while I was out there. And then I came home, and as we know, the pandemic hit, and everything went online. You know, this is online. We get to do things now that we've never been able to do without this Zoom. And so they had a month-long women's practice period. And I didn't go to it, but I watched a lot of the videos. I listened to the podcasts. And what happened to me is I could understand what they were saying. They were talking about the Dharma with things that I could feel in my body, that I could feel in my heart, that I understood. You know, they talked about anger and depression and joy and washing the dishes, doing laundry, cooking, empty nest, jealousy. They talked about all those things that, you know, that I understand. And so I want to be really clear about this. You know, it was a Dharma gate for me to love the Dharma. It was the way that I could feel the Dharma in my body, the way I could feel it in my heart, the way that when I heard it, I understood that it was the truth. You know, when you hear the truth, you hear it in your whole body. You know, and sometimes, you know, you lose a breath when you hear the truth. Sometimes you laugh when you hear the truth. And so it opened everything up for me. And I heard, I want to get to this. I heard Wendy Garling speak. She wrote Stars at Dawn, Forgotten Stories of Women in the Buddha's Life. And Roshi Joan Halifax asked her about the special rules for women. And it wasn't exactly her response, it was the way she responded. She said, in all her research, she believes that the Buddha would never discriminate. But it was the way she said it. She said it with such love that I just went, wow. So I bought her book. I read her book. And I've read, so I started reading books and you know, I read Maureen Stewart, and I'm reading Susan Murcott. And this sort of led me to the Therigattas, you know, the poetry. And so I'm very excited about the poetry. That's what I'm doing now. And I actually would like to read a couple of poems for you, if that's okay. So this poem is by a woman named Sama. After 25 years on the path, I'd experienced almost everything except peace. When I was young, my mother told me that I would find true happiness only in marriage. Remembering her words all those years later, something in me began to tremble. I gave myself to the trembling, and it showed me all the pain this little heart had ever known. and how countless lives of searching had brought me at last to the present moment, which I happily married. Can you imagine? We've been living together ever since without a single argument. There's another one. Utama, great woman. For years I couldn't sleep. Most nights I throw off the covers and take long runs through the dark. Nothing helped. My sisters, when sleepless nights come to tear you into little pieces, rise to meet the day. As a tree rises to meet the axe, as a scalp bows to meet the blade, as sparks from a dying fire reach out to meet the darkness, as of all our bones someday fall softly down to meet earth. When you stand, send your roots down between the stones. When you walk, walk like a skeleton walking to its grave. When you lie down like a blown out candle, being put back in the drawer. When you sit, sit very, very still. My sisters, sit like you are already dead. How could this world possibly give you what you're looking for when it's so busy falling apart, just like you? Look closely, don't move until you see it. I just have one more. This is Sakula from A Good Home. I once gave all of myself to being the perfect wife and mother. Then I heard the teachings of the Buddha. I saw the rising and passing away of what was wife and said goodbye to my husband. I saw the arising and passing away of what was mother, and I said goodbye to my children. What was left, I gave to the path. Oh, my sisters, you never had to be perfect. If there is something in these teachings calling out to you, it's because something in you is calling out to these teachings. The path will take you whenever you're ready, just as you are. So this is a little book. This is called The First Free Women Poems of Early Buddhist Nuns. It's got a little blurb by Joanna Macy, by the way. And her blurb was, like opening a window and letting a clean, fresh wind blow through my being. It's translated by Maddie Weingast. So, Fasatsu, how am I doing on time?
You're doing great.
Doing great. That means
Doing great.
So I guess I'll say why I asked to be a disciple. The Sangha had become really important to me. The meditation had become really important to me. And when I took Jukai in 2017, Sensei had said in 2021 he was going to need some disciples and he was going to start stepping aside. And, he did this the year I was studying to do Jukai, and I didn't pay any attention to it. It was like, it didn't have anything to do with me. And, and I got more involved with the Sangha, and he came home from his last Ango and he was in pain. And so I started setting up the Zendo for everybody. So I went early and set up and made tea, and he started showing me how to open the Zendo, and he clearly was in pain, and then he got a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, and I talked it over with another Sangha member, and I asked, it was like, it was in front of me. It was something that was in front of me that needed to be done. And so when something's in front of me that needs to be done, I usually do it. It surprised me. And I knew, when I asked, I told them all the reasons I shouldn't be a disciple. You know, I have short-term memory, I'm old. I know so little about Buddhism. I just know about the Sangha and the meditation. So here I am. And that's my journey so far. I thought for discussion, we might want to talk about your Dharma gates, you know, what brought you to love the Dharma. Maybe something about your journey. The other thing that we could talk about is, you know, the silver lining in difficult times. You know, all the good things that have come about with what's going on now. The opportunities that we have now that we didn't have before. Just one little opportunity, one thing that's happened for me was, you know, I was busy, my husband was busy. This is my second marriage. He was, you know, I retired, he was still working out of the house a lot. The pandemic hit and we've spent more time together than we ever have. And it's been really good. So that's just one of the good things. So I'm done. Thank you.
Or so you think you're done, Mokuo. Let's just pause for just a second and to receive that for just a second. Gasho, Mokuo, thank you for sharing your vulnerability, your heart, your journey. And as always, Sangha, we are transitioning over to the time when we are open for discussion. So just chew on what Mokuo said about her journey and the questions that she asked you. And please share your experiences and have the conversation with us. So just again, raise your hand, come off of mute. Please participate in the discussion for further Dharma. Yes, Tessin.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Mokuo?
Mokuo. Mokuo.
Mokuo. I was very touched by your story, your journey, and especially the selection of poems that you chose. Can you maybe shed a little bit of light? Is that contemporaneous with the historical Buddha, with Shakyamuni? Are they
Yes.
that old?
They're that old.
Thousands of years.
And there's different translations of the same poems, but
Sure.
They are from the first Buddhist women, yes. Contemporaries of Shakyamuni Buddha, yes.
Because what's so striking is that sounds like something that anyone could say right now.
I know. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is. And thank you so much for sharing. And as Fusat said, you're being vulnerable and open, and thank you so much. I'm interested in hearing other people's thoughts and comments. By the way, I'm up in Chicago.
Yeah.
So yeah, without Zoom, none of this would be happening for me. So we love our techies.
Gasho. And Sensei Tashin?
For those who are interested, the online Dharma study that takes place on Tuesday evenings via Zoom that Kusan chairs and organizes, that is presently studying those poems. And Kusan might want to speak to the text that's being used. But all people are invited to join in if you'd like.
Thank you.
I would love to join that. However, that's when we have our services on Tuesday nights.
Gusan.
Yeah, sure, certainly. I don't have a lot to say. A lot of effort went into choosing the texts, and we actually held an election. So I know that came out that way. It's been stunning to see so many things come together. You have the female, the male comparison. You see that there actually are more similarities than differences. You understand the struggles of everyone through the poetry, and the poetry has been the best part of reading these stories. And like Tessin said, you have to say, wait a minute, were these really written in that time? Because like anything that contains the truth, it speaks for forever. So we've been really happy to be reading that story. And thank you, Mokuo, for your talk.
Indeed.
And I see that Sensei Zenku has come off of mute. So Mission Mountain Zen, is there any comments or questions there?
Yes, you are anticipating very well. Thank you so much, Mokuo, for your comments. Really been fun to get to know you, and I've enjoyed it very much. And we really, your personal sense of your experience. Thank you for kind of opening up so completely and sharing with us about it. I really was struck, especially when you touched on this several times, but once in particular, just saying that, it's like being humble and being aware and accepting what we might perceive as our weaknesses, our frailties. They may be a frailty or they may not. We may label them so, and so in our mind they are, but it's only because of that. And so, the more we can accept, look at what our preconceived notions of ourself is, and of all things for that matter, and keep realizing that's just our perspective, and let that melt away so that we can see the true reality. It reminded me so much, it resonated so much with the end of Dogen's vow, where he says, this, if we are humble, if we let go of self, meaning be humble, this is the true nature of our practice. And so I think your talk did a wonderful job of sharing your story, of course, but amplifying that message. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pusheen.
Since our frequency is open, I will jump in. Mokuo, Gasho, for your delightful talk. I am a disciple myself and am proud to be able to display this. It was perhaps not nearly as easy as your difficult challenge. So I double what you said about Karen, an extraordinary guide, plus I had much help. I'm not sure I was as kind to myself or others when I ran into difficulties, but I learned. And I learned when to ask for help, and that was a good step for me. But I wanted to respond also to a couple of your other points. First is about the experience in April at Upaya, which I also dove into. And I've been deeply fortunate in my life to have amazing women mentors that taught me how not always to be a man or a young man or a boy, but to understand the humanity that we share equally and the love and compassion of all things. And so you touched on that with some of your associations, and I just wanted to double up on that. And I'm reading some of the same poetry that you've spoken to, and it's so grand and opens visions and doorways. And then you asked about a couple Dharma gates, and it got me thinking. So I'll briefly share what I think might have been one of my first Dharma gates and my most recent. And my first was, in retrospect and thinking back, I was in high school, I think either a freshman or sophomore, and one of my brother's friends, he's 4 years older than I, had to come back with him from a college break, and he handed me this book, and it was Baba Ram Das's Be Here Now, Be Now Here.
Right.
And the top of my head just blew right off. And clearly that was my first Dharma gate, and it was a broad one. And it sustained me for quite some time, actually, and continues to. And I feel I've been spiritually aligned with Buddhism ever since, but never really found a home. I sat with many groups throughout time and was, welcomed and supported, but it just wasn't quite a fit for me. And that leads to my one of my most recent, if not my most recent Dharma gate, which is when I had a chance through my partner to meet Jerry Smyers and come up and have a socialized get together. And at some point, he mentioned that he had this sitting group and to come and sit down for a service sometime if I wanted to. And my partner was up for that too. So we came one day, and honestly, when I sat on the cushion, I was home. And it was, as you expressed, this opening of reality, if you will. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to work on it. I didn't have to convince myself. And I didn't have to be terrified with the suggestion that here I am, but just was home. And I feel grateful for the mentorship from my teacher, Zenku, and others in this Sangha who I've grown to know, and through these discussions, I've really grown to love and to share life with in a way that is beautiful and gives me intense growth and joy. So I just wanted to thank you for stimulating all those feelings. The path doesn't end, and there are moments along it we particularly recognize, and you pointed to so many, and I just wanted to thank you so much for that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for your words.
For those who don't know, Kushin is the co-chair on the STO board this year. And you too could enjoy the opportunity to serve your board, just like Kushin has done, because our annual general meeting is coming up tomorrow. And we're always open for anyone to consider lending their talents and skills to assist in all of the background work that goes on. So please consider that. You don't have to be, belong to the organization for long. You can be a newcomer, and we're still happy to have you jump in both feet, as Reverend Matsuoka would say.
Thank you.
Dharma gates are boundless.
So if I can jump in and tie together a couple of pieces there, what Teshin-san just said and what Mokuo was talking about as well, in terms of, Mokuo touched on various aspects of, looking for or needing the mentorship, the sewing practice, the study, and, there are so many paths to practice, and each one represents kind of a different aspect, a different struggle. And I have found over the years, I needed to focus on one area or another. And, it can change rapidly, not so rapidly. One can complement the other. But to Tashin's point, and something Fusatsu and I have been discussing lately is that the opportunity for Sangha practice is one way to really deepen your practice. And I think, you were alluding to that in terms of seeing a need and filling a need at, with Falmouth. And I would just expand Tashin's invitation to think about Sangha practice, because it can be challenging sometimes, but it can be very rewarding as well.
Thank you.
And that wasn't directed at you. I mean, that was everybody. That was a general comment.
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And yes, Sensei Sengaku, I see your hand up, and I'm gonna do a time check too. You have your 1 minute shortly. We'll do the Dharma close, and then we'll transition. And I see Patty too, but Patty, yeah, we'll get you in. Go ahead, Sengaku.
Just a quick comment. Mokuo is the first person in the Falmouth Soto Zen Sangha to take Saikai, first disciple. We've had 14 people taking Jukai over 10 years, and she is the first prototype, as Sensei would say. He's a prototype that we're sending out. And the activities with the mentors and the follow through with her program, I should point out that she started in January of this year, working through the training steps that we had set up based on the training steps of Silent Thunder Order. And so she will be our first person to do that. So it could not have been done without mentors. So everyone involved, Gasho.
Thank you.
And we'll take the last question from Patty, and then we'll go transition to our closing verse and then back into our sit.
I'll make this very short. I'm always timid to speak up, and I appreciate your path, Mokuo. I read about Buddhism for many, many years, but I've never really been interactive with it until I joined this particular Zen community. And I appreciate the opportunity to be that involved in the one-on-one that I've had with several people. I would like to have your reading list that you mentioned.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, so anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate your telling about your path.
Fusatsu, how do we do that?
If you send that to me, I will make sure that's available to everyone, and we'll publish it if you're okay with that, if you're okay with us publishing it.
Yeah, sure.
As a link to your talk.
Okay. Do I have to do that today?
You don't, just by the end of the conference, you're good. We're going to let you off the hook because I know you're probably going to be coming down after this. Again, thank you for your teaching, Mokuo. Again, everybody, just if you would, Sensei Sengaku, if we could participate in the Dharma closing verse. And I apologize because I went right into your talk and didn't do the opening verse. Somebody, it's okay to please catch the tech. I got a lot of stuff going on. So just say, hey, do the verse. So let me throw this. I'm going to put the Dharma closing verse up. We'll do that. And then we will go into our sit.